Hello and welcome to the Satluj TV podcast. Today's returning guest is Dr. Singh Grewal, MD, a distinguished cardiology specialist in California with over 48 years of experience. Dr. Grewal is also a passionate advocate for Sikh and Khalistan causes. He's the co-founder of the SikhHeritageEducation.com website that documents and archives material relevant to Sikh rights and history, and was also the co-founder of the World Sikh News, a hard-copy newspaper that ran for 12 years before the digital revolution took over. Deeply impacted by the events of 1984, Dr. Grewal has since then been a very powerful advocate, ensuring the world never forgets those events. Dr. Grewal, welcome and thank you for joining us once again today.
Good morning, Angus. Waheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji ki Fateh.
Now, Dr. Grewal, we talk a lot about the popular support for the establishment of a sovereign Sikh nation, Khalistan, and we do expect democratic process will one day soon deliver this ambition. However, there's a big difference between ambition and reality, and it's the practical elements of establishing a new country that I would like to examine today with Khalistan in mind. So, to exist, to survive and even be acknowledged globally as a new nation, a country must of course be viable. It must be viable politically, economically, administratively. And of course its geographical boundaries and culture must be clearly defined. So Dr. Grewal, let's start first then with the simple geography. In your belief, is the Punjab big enough and indeed suitable enough as a new independent nation under a new flag?
So, Angus, when I am talking about Punjab, I am talking about Indian occupied Punjab. So, yes, Punjab is big enough. The Punjab is about 50,000 square kilometers in size. There are about 60 countries which is smaller than Punjab. So, there are several prosperous countries which are smaller than Punjab. Like Punjab is 50,000 kilometers square. Switzerland, which is a very prosperous country, is only 41,000 kilometers square. Israel, which is a very strong military country, is only 22,000 kilometers square. And Denmark, which is also a prosperous country, is 42,000 square kilometer in size. Yes, so Punjab won't be the smallest one, won't be the largest one, but Punjab has enough large area in comparison to other countries which are very successful.
So, of course, one of the criticisms that I hear quite often on social media, for example, is that, okay, Khalistan, you can cite it, you can locate it in the Punjab, but it's a landlocked country. It has no access to the sea, and therefore getting imports from a simple basis, imports and exports and things for resources that it might need might be difficult. Do you think the fact that the country is landlocked, it essentially becomes an island, do you think it can survive?
So Punjab is not the only landlocked country. There are 44 countries which are landlocked, and some of the prosperous countries we mentioned before, Switzerland, Austria, Hungary, Nepal, Kazakhstan, Bolivia, are landlocked countries, which we will talk later on too. But even though Punjab is landlocked, the two ports which are accessible to Punjab for trade is Bombay and Karachi. Karachi is only half a distance compared to Bombay, and Punjab is not freely allowed to have any trade through Bombay seaport. It's controlled by Indian government. Punjab produce are not allowed to go there. So having access through Bombay means nothing to the economy of Punjab.
Do you think, and just following that line of thought, of the fact that it is landlocked, it does therefore become quite dependent on its neighbours for access, for example, to a seaport, and in this case we're talking about Karachi in Pakistan, Bombay in neighbouring India. Do you think, could you foresee issues in the negotiations with the neighbours to try and get access to seaports? Because, of course, these neighbours know that Khalistan will need access no matter what. So do you think Khalistan might be in a weak negotiating position to get access to these ports?
There is no reason Pakistan would not have good trade relations. They want good trade relations with India. They will definitely have good trade relations with the Punjab. They are giving seaport access to special port they are constructing to China for trade, and it's beneficial to them. If you look at the recent history, they have made a big Gurdwara in Kartarpur, where Guru Nanak lived in his last days, so the Sikhs can visit there, and the Indian government is destroying Gurdwara. So in comparison to today's politics, I think it's quite favorable to have a trade through Pakistan. We have a lot of cultural connection with the Punjab on the other side. The people are the same.
Before we actually talk about the population element, the demographics, let's call it, I'd just like to stay on the geography to start with, because I think this is quite an important part of the whole discussion. And I do often ask people, well, what is your definition, geographically speaking, of the Punjab? But it's always very difficult to get a precise answer, simply because at this stage there is no precise answer. But I am very intrigued by, of course, when partition happened in 1947, the Punjab, as it existed then, was divided in simple terms down the middle, and of course part of it ended up in Pakistan. Since partition, of course, the Pakistan side of Punjab has diverged culturally. The language, of course, is different. The religion is essentially Islamic. Is there any argument to include present-day Pakistan Punjab in Khalistan? And if not today, could you foresee in the future that one day the Pakistan side of Punjab might want to become part of Khalistan?
Well, I don't know what to predict. I think having freedom to travel, free trade, people working together, just like Canada and US, I think that's good enough. But they want to stay independent, become one. I think that will depend upon what people want, on their relationship as it develops. I have visited there twice, and I find the people are very friendly. They have a mutual respect. I see all positive things. Don't have to be politically one, but as long as we're free and we can respect each other, I think it can be very good.
Okay, well, let's take a look at the whole element of population and the demographics. Of course, to establish a new country, it does need basically to be self-sufficient in many areas, but of course it does need a population of a certain size to sustain itself. Do you believe that the Punjab, as it stands, has sufficient population to stand as its own independent country?
So the current Punjab, which is the Indian occupied Punjab we are referring to, has a population about 30 million. So population for the country should have a group of people who identify as citizens of the new country. This population should have a shared sense of identity or purpose. So we have that. There are 30 million people in Punjab. There are about 50 to 60 countries have populations smaller than Punjab. Some examples are Punjab 30 million, Switzerland 8.8 million, Israel 9.73 million, and Denmark is only 6 million. Other countries which are smaller than Punjab, Malta, Belize, Barbados, Brunei, Luxembourg, Swaziland, Iceland. Iceland is not only 500,000 people, they are 378 or 88,000 people, and look, they have a very prosperous country. So I think there is enough hardworking population in Punjab that Punjab can survive.
Okay, so one of the most fundamental bases for a new country is, of course, its governance. It will need to form a government. And there's been a lot of talk about maybe the potential structure of a government. It does need all the basic administration of governing 30 million people. What, in your mind, would be the framework, the basic infrastructure of Khalistan from a government perspective?
So currently we have a functional government. There's an elected body called assembly, and there's a chief minister, there's a governor, and at the district level there's the administration, and the state government is responsible for education and local issues. The defense and all that is with the Indian government. The problem is the current Punjab government, even though we have a structure, is controlled by government of India, which is not favorable to Punjab, and they want to destroy Punjab. So yes, we will have a structure. This structure will need some modification, but basically, I think the structure will be based on Sikh principle of equality, no caste, freedom to speak, freedom to live, freedom to choose what you want to do, freedom to have good neighbors. So yes, there will be change when we are free and we have our own country, but currently there is a functioning government in Punjab.
Well, can I ask Dr. Grewal? Let me ask you about political parties, because of course, yes, there will be a government formed under Sikh principles. What do you envisage in terms of political parties? Of course, there are the existing political parties. Do you think this will spawn new political parties, or do you think the political landscape will be very similar?
No, I think when the constitution is based on Sikh principles, I think there will be a change. What that change will be, I can only imagine, but I think it will depend when the country is free. You know, the constitution of the country cannot be made before we have a country. Look at the US. The constitution of the country was made 6 or 7 years after. India became free in 47. Constitution was adopted around 50 or 51. So the free people first have to see what they have, what they want, and make changes according to what they want in the future. So what it will be, I think, will be decided after we have a freedom. But currently, I think structurally there is a government.
Okay, and just before we leave the whole political side to it and the governance side, I've often talked about the Constitution of India and how the Constitution of India evolved and came about in 1940, well, between 1949 and 1950. Presumably, Khalistan would need a constitution to establish the nation state. How do you foresee what do you think the basis of that constitution would be? Do you think the constitution would be primarily based on Sikh philosophy, or do you think it would be based on a secular idea? How do you foresee that whole constitutional side of Khalistan standing?
I think it will be based on the Guru Nanak's principle laid down on dignity for human, equality for all, no caste system. If we don't achieve that, then we have not achieved what we wanted to. So it has to be based on Sikh principle. It may not be a theocratic state, but there be equality for all. The non-Sikhs will live in peace and everybody will have respect for each other.
And of course, that reflects how the Sikh Empire was governed back in the 19th century, where, as you say, it was equality for all, although it happened to be a Sikh empire by its very name. So, okay, well, let's look, Dr. Grewal. Let's move on. And of course, legally speaking, there is a huge legal discussion about the whole subject. And of course, any new country must, of course, be recognised internationally. It's all very well a country standing up and saying we are a new country, but it won't go very far if it is not recognised internationally and, of course, by the United Nations and other global bodies. What do you think Khalistan's situation is, legally speaking, and in terms of the United Nations?
Well, recognition of a country when the new country is formed can take for years, but recognition, especially by neighbors and your friends, is very important. In current UN, there are 195 countries of the world, which 3 of them are not UN members, especially Taiwan. You know, Taiwan was a member, but it was kicked out in favor of mainland China. The Kosovo, which became free 2008 from Yugoslavia, is still not a member. So the Vatican City is not recognized as a country. Israel is not recognized as a country by many of its neighbors. Yes, recognition is very important. I am sure the countries which respect democracy, freedom of religion and all that will recognize Khalistan at the right circumstances. I don't have any doubt. Yes, it may take some time to become UN member and all that, but the countries can survive without that.
And of course, there is a lot of lobbying, political lobbying happening across the Western democracies for Khalistan. But of course, unsurprisingly, there is a massive amount of resistance from India. Do you think India has the global influence and the global power to prevent the United Nations recognising Khalistan? Or do you think India will just be pushed back by the rest of the world in recognising Khalistan?
When mass movement, mass uprising takes place, the colonial governments cannot control forever. Look at the fall of Berlin Wall, breakup of Soviet Union. So those are the good examples. So yes, India will try their best, but there's a possible India may not be one country in future. Again, the people in the south want their own share and they don't want to be controlled by northerns. The way the Modi government is going, I think is more likely to break the country into many pieces. They only care about their state and they don't care about anything else.
Okay, well, one of the most important factors, of course, barring all the legalities and the demographics, is the basic economics of establishing a new country. To build a new country requires an enormous amount of resources, and particularly financial resources, to essentially pay for the infrastructure to get the country off the ground, and then of course to sustain it going forward. It does need economic sustainability. In your mind, do you think Khalistan has the basic foundations, financially speaking, to be able to sustain itself as a country? And then going forward, do you think it could be an economic success? We often talk about the entrepreneurial ambitions of the Sikh community, which is globally recognised. Do you think that is enough to propel Khalistan to economic survival and economic success?
Yes, the answer is yes. Even though Punjab is being destroyed by current government, before 1984 attack, Punjab was number one in GDP in India. Now it's the 16th, but it's still pretty good. So GDP of Punjab is $96 billion US dollars. Per capita GDP of Punjab is $3,500 to $4,000. India is only $2,500 to $3,000, and Pakistan is $1,500 to $1,800. So compared to our neighbors on east and west, Punjab is still a prosperous country. So if you look at we talked about population size and all that. So many of the smaller countries than Punjab, like Israel, is estimated to be per capita GDP 55,000, and Switzerland is 94,000. Why are they doing so good? They are free. They are free to trade. They are free to practice what kind of government we want. In spite of this occupation, Punjab economically is still doing fairly well. So Punjab can survive. Sikh diaspora every year remits about $1 billion to $2 billion to Punjab. It's not a small amount. Just like Israelis outside remit money to Israel, Sikhs will continue to support their parent country. The water value of Punjab is about 70% of the water of Punjab is being given to non-riparian states. As of 2010, when the value I could find, it was yearly rupees 25 billion lost to the agriculture of Punjab, again to the non-riparian states. Look at the loot going on. Electricity produced in Punjab, big share is still given out to Punjab. It's about 13,000 megawatts, which is worth about 1 to 2 billion US dollars and not managed well. So like we talked before, trade with other countries is not allowed. So if we are allowed to use Karachi seaport, which is half the distance compared to Bombay, I think the situation economically will be even much, much better. Agriculture of Punjab is about $1 billion or higher per year. So even though GDP of Punjab is good compared to the other, the debt of Punjab is very high. It's about 43% of the GDP. It is mainly because of the occupation of Punjab and the Punjab being forced to pay for all the expenses incurred by paramilitary forces in 1984 and not allowed free trade. Look at the farmers. The farmers are almost like a constant agitation. Whatever they were promised has never been implemented. They are, I think, not understanding. They are trying to ask the government to give them something when the same government wants to destroy Punjab. So in Sikh history, there is a Bhai Gurdas whose writings are considered very valuable, not necessarily as Guru Granth Sahib. He says, Data ona mangiye, de mangan jaye. Don't ask for a giver when then you have to ask for more givers. So that means you rely on the God, not on humans. Hosha shah na kijiye, fir pachotaiye. That means don't have a bad banker that you have to keep finding more bankers. So we need to rely on God and nature, not on these corrupt governments. They are ruining Punjab. You know, there's a new plan going on. They first had a canal to divert Satluj waters to Haryana. Now that has not been implemented because of resistance from the Punjab. One time Punjab Assembly unanimously opposed it and cancelled it. But they still have not given up. Now they want to take the water from state, which is Himachal, which used to be part of Punjab. They want to divert the water directly from Himachal before it reaches Punjab. So the crookedness of that Indian government has no limits. But the only solution we have is the freedom. If farmers have a freedom, they will be much better. So my appeal to my farm brothers is stop this agitation, blocking roads and railways, causing inconvenience for your own people. Stop burning this stubble, which is making you hard to breathe. You are not hurting the Indian government. Join the freedom movement. If you are free, you will see the benefit of freedom. So this is my message to my farmer brothers. Join the freedom movement and you will gain what you want. Even this morning, there's a news, somebody committed suicide because he couldn't pay the debt. The only solution is a freedom, and more freedom.
Indeed. Well, before we leave the discussion about economics, there is one area that I'm curious about as well, on your thoughts, Dr. Grewal, is that, the Punjab has a lot of very valuable natural resources. It is often described as the breadbasket of India due to its very successful agricultural industry. It has the 5 rivers, etc. It has that massive water resource. But when we establish a new country, it does seem that the argument that it will be economically sustainable has been granted. I think it will survive as a nation. But in the early years, to establish a lot of the infrastructure, to establish just the basic foundations of the country, whether that's the defence, the governance, the simple central bank, things like this, it does require a lot of capital. It does require a lot of initial finance to fund this. I'm very curious then, Khalistan would have various options to raise this finance. It could maybe go out to the international money markets to try and raise finance in that way. But of course, as a new country, it has no track record, it has no credit history, shall we say. So it will be very expensive to borrow money. It is therefore likely to turn to other nations for loans, direct loans to help build the nation of Khalistan. Where do you think that direction will come from? Of course, China to the north, I have no doubt, would be delighted to fund Khalistan. But of course, China's money will come with a very large bill, let's say. In other words, they will want a lot in return, as they have done in many nations. Then, of course, there is the West, there is the United States. Where do you see, I think the simple question here, Dr. Grewal, is where do you think it's likely that the Khalistan new government will turn to raise finance, and why?
I think once in place, they will have a lot of their own resources to carry on the government. Yes, there are some international bodies where you can ask for the finance. As long as you are strong economically, anybody will give you the money. The banks only give you the money where they think they will get it back. They don't give it to money to the who cannot return. So I don't think there should be any difficulty with that, because Punjab has the resources, and the Sikhs in diaspora have done very well. Their income is not the same as the Punjab, so they will be able to go back and invest. Now, if a Sikh from outside goes, there's one gentleman, Mr. Jahal, went from UK and he's still in jail. So even though you're trying to do things good for Punjab, you're not allowed to. So I think the Sikh diaspora will be a major contributor to industrialize and uplift the Punjab, which they are not allowed to.
Well, I suppose linked to this, and this is one idea that I've often aired when we've talked about Khalistan, is if a nation does loan money to help the establishment of Khalistan, quite often it does come with a quid pro quo. It comes as part of a deal to supply something in return. And I've often said that the United States, of course, would be a very obvious financial partner, should we say, for Khalistan, because primarily Khalistan will occupy an extraordinarily important strategic location. It stands close to the border with China, it sits between two nuclear powers, Pakistan and India, and it does sit in an area that can potentially dominate the Indian Ocean region. So strategically speaking, it does sit in a very important location. And it is, of course, an important springboard for any nation's military should, God forbid, anything bad happen in terms of the global structure and global stability. The obvious one there, of course, is the United States. So my question then, Dr. Grewal, is looking at the defence and the ongoing defence of Khalistan. It does sit as a small island nation. It is vulnerable to its neighbours. It is vulnerable to China to the north. It will need an army. It will need potentially an air force. So it will need to be able to defend itself. And as I mentioned, the United States, I'm sure there would probably be a deal to be done in simple terms where the United States, in exchange for allowing, for example, US military forces a local base in Khalistan, in return for finance to help build the country. But I want to ignore that for one side. Maybe you do have a comment on that. But I also want to get your opinion also on the domestic armed forces of Khalistan. How do you see where are they coming from?
So, having a buffer country between India and Pakistan, it will benefit the defense expenses of those two nations too, not only us. So right now, Indian armed forces is about 1.4 million. The Sikhs used to be at one time 30% of that. Now it's 10 to 15%. Sikhs are a natural soldiers. So their plan is to reduce our participation is to 2%. That's the plan Indira Gandhi laid out, and it's working because they realized how much money the retirees were taking in Punjab from the Indian budget. They want to reduce it. So if we follow the concept of a Khalsa, where every Sikh will become a soldier, we can defend ourselves. And the expense, the technology and all those things are very important in today's defense, but the manpower is still very important. And I think it'll be very important for the whole world to benefit from stopping this conflict between India and Pakistan. And I don't think Khalistan will need a huge army, but there won't be lack of soldiers who will be willing to work there. Anything. It could be just like any school child after finishing school. You can ask 1 or 2 years to serve, like US used to have, many other countries have, Israel has. So you have to meet your needs based upon whatever the needs are, and the population has to cooperate.
Okay, Dr. Grewal, for the final section of our discussion, I want to look at, I suppose, one of the most important parts of unifying a nation. And that, of course, is the discussion around cultural identity. And we do talk a lot about the culture of the Sikh community. Can you talk us through then, what do you see as the cultural identity of Khalistan?
So the cultural identity includes several things: language, traditions, where population has a sense of belonging together. Punjab has a very rich heritage and a culture. We have a language, which is a Punjabi. We have a religion, which is mostly Sikhs, but we also have festivals like Vaisakhi. Vaisakhi festival was the one where Guru Gobind Singh created a Khalsa. We have Gurupurvs, Guru's events, birthdays and all that. And then we have a culture of cuisine. Punjabi cuisine is very well liked. You know, in London, Punjabi restaurants are very popular. This is saag and makki di roti, lentils, vegetable food, dairy products, music and dance. Bhangra is becoming very popular. That's a Punjabi music and dance, giddas, art and craft, Punjabi embroidery, pottery, woodwork. So we have a variety of things which are culture. Religious practices are there. Community kitchen is a very important part of our culture. The gurdwaras where anybody can eat. So I don't think there's any lack of culture events. Culture is very rich if we can continue to practice.
And of course, one of the fundamental concepts in Sikhi is sovereignty. And this is why I believe that there are so many people in the community who are so passionate about Khalistan as a concept. Can you talk about why the concept of sovereignty is so ingrained in Sikhism?
So sovereignty comes from the basic principles. It's deeply intertwined with the principle of justice, equality, and divine right to self-governance. Sikh teachings emphasize the importance of individual and collective sovereignty, wherever every person having inherent dignity and right to make decisions about their own life. Sikhism, sixth Guru started Miri Piri concept, where there is a spiritual and temporal power lies in the Sikh community, not with the rulers. Individuals were supposed to stand against oppression, injustice, advocating for the right of marginalized and establish of a just society. Guru Gobind Singh created Khalsa in 1699. Concept of Khalsa is a collective sovereignty. Sikh gurus have rejected tyranny. You know, in the West, the ladies who started the women's movement, they used to say, resistance to tyranny is obedience to God. This was in the US. But Sikh gurus started resistance to tyranny. Guru Arjan Dev, Guru Tegh Bahadur sacrificed their lives resisting the tyranny. So the resistance to tyranny and concept of sovereignty is a very well established, ingrained in Sikh culture and Sikh religion. Sant Jarnail Singh Pindrawale, who was in Golden Temple when army attacked, he said, when army will attack Golden Temple, if they attack, there will be the foundation laid for the Khalistan. Pai Harjinder Singh Jinda and Pai Sukhdev Singh Sukha, those two brave young men who killed General Vaidya and were hanged, and they did not claim for any mercy. They said they are guilty, do whatever you want to do. But they also said by killing the Vaidya, they have brought the historical truth to the light, the urge of the Khalsa Panth to breathe in freedom, in self-respect and honor, which cannot be finished. Now, in recent few years, Sikhs for Justice have started a referendum movement. In the beginning, it didn't look like how much impact it will have. I myself was somewhat skeptical, but I didn't see anything wrong in that because Sikhs have been saying Raj Karega Khalsa in their prayer, but they have been doing in Gurdwara's houses, and the Sikhs for Justice have brought out in public and say what you want. And the support for referendum has been tremendous in US, Canada, England, and other countries, and is still continuing. So you can see sovereignty is very important to the Sikhs. That's what we want. If Punjab is allowed to have referendum, I think the result will be same. So I don't think there's any doubt that Sikhs want sovereignty. Sovereignty is their birthright, and we will get it. To establish a new country, you don't always have to have a war. The circumstances can be, look at the fall of Berlin Wall, fall of Soviet Union, South Africa. There are many examples where power will change without bloodshed. So we're hoping that will be the case for whatever the price. I think Sikhs will have to pay. Freedom is the only solution. Freedom is the only remedy for all the illnesses the Punjabis are facing now because it's occupied. So instead of solution being a physician, I call a remedy. This is the one remedy to all our problems. Freedom, freedom, more freedom. Freedom means Khalistan.
Indeed, a message that is being heard loud and clear across the community. But unfortunately there we must leave it, but we will be talking again with Dr. Grewal soon to continue our discussions. Dr. Grewal, as always, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you again. I think I have tried to dispel the misinformation, disinformation created by Indian media that Khalistan is not a viable option. I think Khalistan is very well viable option. It's better than people ever even imagine. Thank you, Angus.
My pleasure. And thank you for watching the Satluj TV podcast. We will see you next time.